welcome, dear viewers, to this special edition on EBC. I'm Wonderman Angada. Today, we talk about the visit of International Monetary Fund, IMF, Managing Director Christine Lagarde to Ethiopia. I'm joined by my colleague Abraham Asrat to discuss with me about Lagarde's visit. Welcome, Abraham. To begin with, what can you say about the purpose of Lagarde's visit to Ethiopia?
Ethiopia is one of the founding members of the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. So their relationship is strong. So a lot has been going on, starting from the founding of the Monetary Fund and up to this time. So she want to come to Ethiopia to see how the economic model that Ethiopia is following being implemented in the country, to see for herself the development that was talked about. The development narration was there for a very long time. It's been Ethiopian narrative. So she wanted to see what is going on in the country. Is a development really going on? Is it happening? She want to verify those things, and actually there is the obvious thing also. She want to create that, take that relationship between Ethiopia and her organization to the next level, to strengthening that relationship. Adding upon the relationship is the other mission or aim of her visit.
Stay outside or
no, let us pause like
okay,
this.
Good.
Yeah, if she wants to see, let her
All right, well, she has met with President Mulatu Teshome and Ethiopian Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn as well, and other officials, and paid a visit to different places in and around Addis Ababa. And you have attended most of these places as well. So tell us about them.
All right, she has started her visit actually by meeting with the Ethiopian President, Dr. Mulatu Teshome. So she had a very robust discussion with him about the economy of Ethiopia, about the ways to see or to further strengthen the relationship between the two. She discussed about these things and other things with him. Right after she finished discussing with him, she met with the Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn.
Delighted to be here. And the rest of it, you know, Mr. Kosawan.
She made, they talked about one major point. That major point is Ethiopia getting technical assistance from International Monetary Fund. And Prime Minister Hailemariam verified that the International Monetary Fund is to give this technical assistance for Ethiopia in area of, boosting, scaling up the foreign direct investment that Ethiopia is implementing and making it modern in those areas, and the area of tax collection as well. So in these areas, Ethiopia is to get the support of the International Monetary Fund, and they talked about this and other things. Actually, not only they talked on this thing, she met with other dignitaries. We'll be talking about them after a while, I think, but she met with other dignitaries, Ethiopian dignitaries, and visited different areas. We would raise them in between, actually.
Good morning, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Welcome.
Very nice to see you. Thank you for coffee.
Ethiopia is one of the founding members of the IMF, but from 1945. And this is, according to what the President just told me, it's the first visit of an International Monetary Fund Managing Director to Ethiopia. So I'm very proud to come and visit. I'm really here to better understand the economic development model which has been implemented in Ethiopia. We had a very productive discussion about the performance of the Ethiopian economy, which is doing very well in terms of growth.
She has commended the positive economic trajectory in the country, and she's quite pleased about it. In fact, she has appreciated Ethiopia's contribution in hosting 850,000 refugees in the country and unrelenting efforts in the stability of the Horn of Africa, with particular focus on Somalia and South Sudan.
How are you?
ኢትዮጵያን ኢኮኖሚ እድገት በተመለከተ አይኤምኤፍ በየአመቱ እየመጣ በአርት
The IMF does its assessment on the growth of Ethiopia every year. They have confirmed the double-digit growth of the economy. However, there is the issue of imbalance of foreign direct investment, and now we'll be working to address it and other issues relating to tax collection with the technical assistance promised by IMF.
So we discussed the economic situation at the moment, and I certainly praise the Prime Minister for the first phase of economic development, as I have called it, this period of the last 15 years which has seen the economy grow at double digit, which is quite unusual those days, and how much this effort has delivered in terms of poverty reduction, in terms of inclusive growth, and I was very impressed. We also discussed the second phase of development, which is coming and which is now certainly going to deliver new results, and which will improve the private sector, which will involve the private sector more so, which will be focused on re-establishing stability in the external imbalances that we have at the moment, focusing on all the good equilibriums that are propitious for private sector to be interested in participating in the Ethiopian economic development, creating jobs for the young people of Ethiopia.
All right, yeah. And Lagarde also visited Eastern Industry Zone in Dukum Town along with Ethiopian Investment Commissioner Fitsum Arega, and her reaction about the visit was very strong. And she actually highlighted a lot on the importance of foreign direct investment, or FDI.
Yes, definitely. She visited Eastern Industry Zone and the town of Dukum. She was there. I was there alongside as a journalist in the area. So actually, the Eastern Industry Zone is very big industry zone, and there are around 80 companies in it. 80 companies from different parts of the world, be it Europe, America, Asia, from different places. And she had the chance, the opportunity to visit only 2 of these companies, because it's very wide. You couldn't reach, you couldn't access everything in it.
Of course, if you say there are about more than 80 companies there, she could not visit all of them.
Definitely. So she visited 2 of these companies. The two of these companies are Huajian. Huajian is one of very known.
Is it a Chinese company?
A Chinese shoe manufacturing company. It exports to actually Western countries, to America and Europe. And she visited in there, and she was somehow surprised about the whole thing in there. So right after that, she visited also Unilever, and this company is a company which is engaged in manufacturing this ointment, saying as a like the soaps, detergents, and things like that. So she visited in there, and she had actually an interview with different journalists in there.
Yeah. What did she specifically talk about foreign direct investment and its importance to the growth of Ethiopia?
Yeah, I can say in all her speech, in all her address, she was very vocal about one thing. One similar thing that I got from her speech that she made in different places is that she was very vocal about creating a very strong relationship between private and public partnerships.
Yeah.
Private-public partnership is not only important for the country, Ethiopia, but in relation with other countries, the relation that Ethiopia has with other countries, this private-public partnership is very important. So she was very vocal about it. She was talking about it now and again. So what she has seen in Eastern Industry Zone confirmed that. She saw companies from different parts of the world, and she was very excited to talk about those companies. She was very excited about to say these things should be supported, these things should be encouraged to happen in Ethiopia so that the economic development that Ethiopia is wishing to achieve can be achieved easily.
I think it's very important that the private sector, be it domestic or international, be included in the development progress of the country. If you want to create jobs, if you want to provide training, clearly you need the private sector to invest, as Unilever is just doing, as the Chinese operator, thank you, Wanjian, making shoes for the world.
Ethiopia is in the fast industrialization agenda and is doing it from heart. And it's been seen here in Eastern Industrial Park, where there are more than 82 projects, out of which 42 are operational and the others under construction.
The managing director, along with UNECE Executive Secretary, has addressed a gathering. In her speech, Lagarde underlined on the vitality of public-private partnership to achieve sustainable growth for Africa and, of course, harnessing technology for inclusive growth in the continent.
It was fascinating for me to see how technologies, however modern, however based on broadband, on, in a way, soft infrastructures, actually need public involvement, public domain, public infrastructure, and the strong partnership that the private sector has to enter into with the public sector. There are big projects. We know particularly of them in this country. But there are also multiple other projects that are smaller by nature and by investment. Fascinating for me to actually see that a good, solid road is actually needed. You know, I'm pushing open doors in many ways, but unless you actually see it for yourself, you don't really realize. But a very necessary road from one place to the other. Proper public transportation for people to go to work. The infrastructure when it comes to education and health. The hand-holding about training given to the employees, that is not going to be particularly effective unless those people have access to education at an earlier stage during their life.
And the question, I think, before us is how can we together, as two institutions that help frame the discussion and the narrative around inclusive, sustainable growth, bring those things to bear in the dialogue with our policymakers to make sure that the youth of our continent, as they come forward, can find their own jobs, can employ themselves. We believe that as we go into the next century, many people will be employed at home. Many people will basically talking about SMEs, and we need to do better ICT, better inclusion, better development, better diversification. We need to be able to add value, and add value at different nodes. We cannot all congregate in our urban cities. And so I think that this is really the point of this discussion today, is that the macro and the structural have come together. The questions about growth are not just macroeconomic, they are about structural, they are about people, they are about lives, they are about equity. And I think having us think about that and reflect on what kinds of changes in development we can do together can only be beneficial to the continent.
Her last stopover was at Hamlin Fistula Hospital, and on her way to the hospital, she was accompanied by Ethiopian Minister of Health, Professor Yufru Burhan, and she visited the hospital.
Yeah, she visited, it was her last destination of a visit in Ethiopia, actually. It was somehow different in a way. It was touching because she had to meet people that suffered a lot during their labor, during their delivery. So people affected by fistula, she had to meet these people, and her reaction was different. Her reaction was not like the reaction she had when she made the president or the prime minister. So again, as you've rightly mentioned, the Minister of Health of Ethiopia, Professor Yifru Burhan, was in there. So what she said in there is there's the mission of IMF. Among the missions of IMF is creating stability, creating this sustaining situation is one of them. So she saw that area, doctors helping, nurses helping those people affected by this thing. So she said that mission of IMF, sustaining or creating a stability, ensuring us to dominate in areas, in countries, will be implemented in that area. So what is possibly expected is, after her visit of Fistula Hospital, after meeting people, doctors in there, she was touched. So she promised that one of the purposes of IMF will be achieved. Yeah, and as you've rightly mentioned, the professor was in there, so he had to give a speech as well. And in his speech, he mentioned that the increment and building of hospitals in the country and, bringing professionals into the profession of helping people, doctors becoming very specialized in different areas. So he was very strong. He was very vocal as well about helping people in that way through creating the infrastructure, through training doctors, training nurses. So he was actually talking about his government's position in that area.
So it's mainly because we hospital patients are not.
I know that you have a goal for 2020, which is to eradicate fistula in Ethiopia, and I very much hope that you will reach that goal. We, as the International Monetary Fund, we try to help with stability from a financial point of view, with prosperity from an economic point of view, and we know very well that nothing happens without peace, without health, and without education.
It's not only putting in our programs, but there are indicators. The number of hospitals, some 10 years back were only 87, now more than 400. So in the coming 8 years, we are hoping to increase the number of specialists from about 1,500 to 8,000.
Well, that winds up this edition of this special program on ABC. Hope you have enjoyed our show, and don't forget to tune in next time with yet another production. Until then, it's goodbye from me, Abraham Asrat, and my colleague here, Wonderman Ngida, along with the entire crew here. Goodbye for now.